As far as crude oil being transported through Emeryville, we've done a lot of research on that, including oil by rail safety in California amongst KQED's report last year to crude by rail area of concern. I was speaking to a Union Pacific rep actually on the way here on commodity transported through Emeryville. And as far as Bakken crude, which is the big fear, which started from the, I can't even say the name, the Quebec derailment,
Right.
which we lost the 47 lives up in Canada. That's where most of this Bakken crude hike stemmed from, was that particular incident. And what people don't realize on that incident is that they had the train car on
It was on a grade.
it was on a grade and it was chocked and it was unmanned. So they parked it there overnight. It didn't have what the requirements are today of the rail cars to transport crude. These were DOT 111 cars, they call them, which transport any type of liquid, molasses, milk, whatever. So what happened is, in that particular case, the chock broke loose, the train was unmanned, traveled for several miles in excess of 60 miles an hour, and it went into the small town, which was built after the rail lines. The tracks went on a bend, so it was doing 60+ miles an hour, went right into town, and of course that one did explode and happened to have Bakken crude on it. So that was where everybody started panicking on the Bakken crude. And Bakken crude is basically a region in the Dakotas where we are now, they call it fracking. We're removing oil from the ground here in the States now, in the United States, versus going abroad, because we have massive amounts of oil that we're now tapping into. Hence one of the reasons I think our economy has actually gotten better since they've been tapping into this. But it's basically, it's probably got a bad rep for what it is. It is a little more volatile than normal crude because of the aerated hydrocarbons in the oil when they take it out of the ground. What they have been doing since that time is, one, not transporting it for a while. They basically let the gases release off the crude before they transport it, because it has to have a certain PSI in the tank cars. They can't transport unless it has a lower PSI. We've had a few incidents throughout the country, the only one with zero injuries or fatalities. So we've had small or incidences of derailments, but we've had no big issues like the Quebec incident. That one, again, excessive speeds, unmanned. So the Department of Transportation and the American Railroad Association have come to many agreements on how they're going to transport crude throughout the United States. And that is, one, having manned trains, regulated speed limits, not in excess of 40 miles an hour when you're carrying crude. And as far as crude coming through the city of Emeryville, from all reports that I have come up with and talked to persons, they are stating they do not have what's called reportable quantities coming through. And here's a map of where they do have reportable quantities of what's called Bakken crude, which is coming from the Dakotas, and it basically is north of us into the town of Richmond. It's not coming through Alameda County proper, these rail lines. And also there's a map here, which I'll pass out, of areas of concern for railroad in California, marked in red, and it's mostly the Sierras and down south as far as where their concerns are. And I understand in the Sierras they're not actually transporting crude just because of the elevation.
Right. I'm not really concerned about grade accidents. What I'm concerned about is the railroads are using, their tracks there to store we don't know what the material is that they're storing there. Tank car after tank car after tank car, right in the middle of a dense population. And I think, Scott, that we should think, this is a long-range thing, but we should be working with the legislature to exclude the storage of these rail cars in the residential area. This is right in the middle of a residential area. The whole stretch of Emeryville, and you see tank car after tank car after tank car stored there. They should be storing them down at the depot, the Navy depot, or what used to be the Navy depot. We have a potential bomb in the middle of town, not from rolling cars, but from vandalism or terrorist activity. So that's, that's
I think the city's going to have more clout on, obviously, storage within the boundaries of Emeryville. Now, again, this is federally regulated, all rail lines. And there's certain things they do not want the public to know that they're transporting. For the
Exactly.
very fact that it would be a
But we don't
terrorist
want them
target.
in this square
Now,
mile.
as far as
I'm
storage,
concerned.
yeah, as far as storage, that's something the city's gonna
So
have to
that's-
come up with.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
we have
we-
the support of the rest of the council.
Yeah, I'm
but that
sure.
is a long-range type thing that we should be working toward. Store those cars down at the, what do they call that, the depot?
And as far as rail accidents here in town, I think overall, being though it's a straight stretch and it is flat, and they do have
Exactly.
monitored speed limits, I think we're, gonna be pretty safe here in this area as far as rail accident goes. But of course, as far as storage, that's something I'm probably not gonna be able to have the cops
Okay.
do.
All right,
Thanks, Chip.
are we on to item 4, information items?